Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's the CD guy, Johnny Z here. Thank you so much for tuning back into the channel, and today I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on the new Nine Inch Nails soundtrack for Tron Ares. Tron Ares is the soundtrack to the film of the same name, released today on September 19th, 2025. The album contains 24 tracks in total, featuring music by Nine Inch Nails. The music was composed by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, and it's their first film score where they're credited under the Nine Inch Nails name instead of their individual names. So there's 24 tracks here in total, but I'm only going to talk about a couple that stood out to me, so let's kick things off here with As Alive As You Need Me To Be. This track is a real throwback to Pretty Hate Machine, in my opinion, kind of like Pretty Hate Machine meets With Teeth in a way. It's able to conjure up that classic Nine Inch Nails sound, and I love the melody on this track. I think it worked really well as the lead single for the soundtrack. It's cinematic, but also really catchy and industrial. Definitely a track that I think errs on the side of simplicity for obvious reasons, but a fun song for sure with a really catchy chorus. The other track I want to talk about here is Who Wants to Live Forever. At first I assumed this was going to be a Queen cover. Wouldn't be the first time Nine Inch Nails covered Queen, but I'm glad we got an original track here instead. A very cool ambient sounding song with a different energy to it. Trent's vocals sound really powerful here as he shares vocal duties with singer Udaline, and I'd never heard of her, but her voice adds a really interesting, dimension to things on this track, something entirely different, I would say, from the rest of the record here, and her and Trent's vocals mesh really well. This sounds like it could be straight off the Fragile. I think a lot of people were expecting a more traditional Nine Inch Nails release just because the soundtrack was released under the Nine Inch Nails banner rather than just as Trent and Atticus, but if you go into this soundtrack expecting a classic Nine Inch Nails record, you're going to be disappointed. There are moments of classic Nine Inch Nails here where I can pull certain parts and say, well, this would fit on With Teeth, and this would fit on The Fragile, but in general, it's a pretty straightforward soundtrack for the film. A lot of these instrumentals are probably way better than the context of the movie, and the whole thing feels very safe, which is to be expected considering this is a soundtrack to a PG-13 Disney film. But if you analyze it differently as a soundtrack, Trent and Atticus obviously do great work together. They have great chemistry, and they're able to create some awesome ambient moments. And I really like what they've done with the sound here, shifting away from what Daft Punk did with the use of orchestra for Legacy, and instead taking a darker, more electronic and industrial tone on this film for the soundtrack. Makes it sound totally different, from past soundtracks for Tron, and that was why Nine Inch Nails were a bit of an orthodox pick, when this got revealed, but I think they did a great job here and definitely made it their own. For people who were waiting like 5 years for a proper Nine Inch Nails record and were expecting more, this is probably best enjoyed as a 4-song album of, tracks with vocals and a collection of really cool instrumentals as well. And as an actual Nine Inch Nails record, it probably wouldn't rank that high in their catalog for me, but as a soundtrack, I think it's pretty bleak and ambient when it needs to be, and so for that, I'd probably give it a 7.5 out of 10. So that wraps up this brief review here of the soundtrack to the Tron Ares film by Nine Inch Nails. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel down below, turn on the bell for notifications so you don't miss a new upload, and let me know down in the comment section below. Did you enjoy the soundtrack? Are you going to see the movie? And is this what you expected from Nine Inch Nails scoring Tron? I want to hear from you. And until next time, it's the CD guy, Johnny Z, signing off. Take care, everybody.